All right. Hello, you guys. Welcome back to another episode of the Take 30 podcast. So my guest today is Miss Teresa. She is from British Columbia in Canada, and she is also a self-published coach. So, Miss Teresa, how are you doing today?
Good, thank you. And I just want to say, I never actually told you how to say my name, and my name is Teresa.
Oh, Teresa.
You never actually said each other's name yet, so that would have been a good thing to say.
Right. I was like, is it Teresa? Well, thank you for correcting me.
Oh, so hi. Thank you so much for having me on today. I appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So the first question I love to ask my guests is, what's something you learned? What's something challenging that's happened in the last few weeks? Or what's something you've learned in the last few weeks? So it can be anything. It can be a book that you read, article that you read, or even something you saw on TV.
I read lots. But most of my books are fiction. So I don't know, do I learn lots from fiction? One thing I learned in the last little while is that this is very all about me. I've had a lot of concussions, and I learned in the last few weeks that sound, even years later, I get overwhelmed very easily, and that affects, I get, so it's that piece is causing me to get overwhelmed in life because I have oversensitive. Is that the word I'm looking for? Oversensitized?
Oversensitized, I think.
Yeah, like I'm overstimulated.
Overstimulated. Yeah.
Yeah. So there's so much around me. I don't have enough quiet time, and that's causing my nervous system to get overwhelmed. And the simplest things will overwhelm me. And, it causes, I'm having a hard time breathing, kind of thing. So that's one thing I learned. I didn't realize after all these years, that was impacting me in such a great way.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, I do know certain sounds do affect people, even dogs, because I have a dog at home, and it's like certain sounds she'll literally, especially thunder and lightning, like that dog will be scratching on the door. So I'm like, oh, okay. So you don't like certain sounds, and when you hear certain things, especially when they're mowing my lawn, my dog will literally try to actually scratch the door, and I'm like, yeah. It's okay. It's just a lawnmower. But
yeah, and that's why kids, they get overstimulated so quickly. And I don't think as adults, we don't realize because we don't get as overstimulated as quickly. But when you've had a lot of concussions, your brain goes back a little. And yeah, that's one thing. It's, I prefer to compare myself with children as opposed to animals, but yeah, exactly.
So that's definitely something that, especially owning a dog, being a dog owner, that's special. I had to learn that certain sounds even affect dogs.
Yeah.
So that's something that, I didn't learn about until I started owning a dog. But so just tell us just a little bit about yourself, your background, where you went to school, where you grew up.
I right now live in Vancouver, British Columbia, as you said. I was born in a small-ish town city, about 4-hour drive east of Vancouver. It's called Kelowna in British Columbia. It's a very tourist destination place. There's vineyards and orchards and ski hill and lake, and yeah, it's beautiful. I grew up in central Canada and moved back to Kelowna. Then I moved to Vancouver, and then I moved to London, England, and then I moved to Vancouver again, and I've stayed here.
So you moved a couple times throughout your life.
I've moved a few times, some with parents, some without parents. Yeah, it's we have family in Kelowna, but it's I'm a city person myself. I really
Mhm.
like the options available to me
Right.
for, I don't know, scenery, culture, all kinds of things. I just love the feel of a city so much better than small places.
Small places. I agree.
Yeah.
I totally get it. I'm a city girl. Like, I don't mind living. I like right now where I live, in Florida. I'm like 1 hour away from like, downtown Tampa.
Oh, okay.
So like, I don't I have to drive far to get that whole city life thing. But like
Yeah.
I would rather be a little bit closer to the city. That way there's a little bit more options available to me. And so like you said, and you get to explore places downtown. So that's what I love. And especially whenever I go to Canada, like I love visiting downtown Montreal, downtown Toronto,
Mm-hmm.
and I love the whole scenery there. And me and my dad, especially when we're in Canada, we would go hiking on the mountains and just to sightsee. And oh my gosh, I love doing that with him.
Yeah, I mean, I grew up in central Canada, so it's pure flat prairie farmland, right? But
All right.
one thing I love is the mountains, and I do
Mhm.
miss the mountains when I'm not in the mountains. And I do a lot of traveling, and you're in places with no mountains, or they're like, "Oh, look at our mountain," and I'm like, that's kind of a small hill, but I love your mountain. I'm like trying to be happy for you, but I'm like, oh, I had a friend, my friend's husband pointed it out to me. He's like, not everybody grew up in the Rocky Mountains, so stop being a snob. And I was like, oh, well, that's a good point. I was like, you don't realize that you take it for granted, right?
Right. Mhm.
But yeah, you're right. Like the hiking and the scenery is, amazing.
Yeah, and
It's very much outdoors.
right, exactly. And the thing is, I love like Florida heat. Oh my gosh. I mean, like sometimes I can't even go outside because
Yeah.
it's so hot. Like one time like during the summer actually, they say it was 85 degrees. I swear it felt like it was 110. I was like, I'm not in Miami. Miami weather gets up to 110 degrees, and I'm like,
Oh,
oh, this is unbearable. So like, um,
so I
whenever we
think
go to
Christmas
Canada
once when it was that hot, and we just drove around all the time in air conditioning.
and air conditioning, yeah.
We're like, let's drive to a building with from one air conditioning to another air conditioning.
Right. So I'm just like, no, I can't bear this heat. So like, I love Canada weather in the summertime because it's like it's nice weather. Like it's not too hot, it's not too cold. It's like,
Well, it depends where you go.
well, right.
Where I grew up in Central is in Saskatoon, in
Hmm.
Saskatchewan, and we had plus 40 Celsius,
Hmm.
which is, I believe, around 110. I can't remember the conversion. And then in the winter, it was in the minus 40s. So you have very extremes. That's why I love Vancouver. It's
Hmm.
less extreme, and the
Right.
winters aren't as cold and the summers aren't as
Summers
hot.
aren't just cold. Right.
Yeah,
and that and that and I was saying to you earlier because I have a cousin that went to a university. I think it was University of British Columbia.
UBC. Yeah.
Um, and yeah, she loved being up there because like especially she is from Montreal,
Mm.
so like it would embrace the very cold weather, the snow,
Yeah.
and when she moved to Vancouver, she was like, "Oh, I'm so happy I don't have to embrace that snow," and she
We
would
did.
send me a photo. So I was
Yeah.
like, I was like, okay, yeah, I feel your pain, especially growing up in snow all your life. Like me, I've never seen snow, but
Oh my gosh.
I do plan on experiencing at least one time, at least to say that I've been there, done that.
Yeah, I have a
I've
friend in
made a snowman.
Australia. Exactly. I have a friend in Australia, and that's her dream, is to go somewhere where they get snow for Christmas at least once,
At
kind of
least one.
thing in her life, right? So,
Right.
'cause obviously in Australia it's summertime, so they don't get snow for Christmas. So,
Right.
yeah.
Right. because Australia, yeah, and I actually have my cousins, like her cousin on her mom's side, is lives in New Zealand, I think.
Ah, beautiful country. Yeah.
Yeah, and I was like, oh, that's a beautiful country to go to. Like, I want to go to Australia. I want to go to New Zealand. I want to go to England. I want to
You should do
explore.
it all. Do it all.
I want to do it all. So,
What you do is you just watch for sales, and you just that's how I end up traveling is I watch for sales.
for sales.
Yeah, and I ended up booking a trip to Australia that way. I saw
Oh,
an email came across, and it was so cheap. I can't even fly to the other side of Canada as cheap as that flight was.
oh my gosh.
Well, no, actually, that's not true. I probably could if I could find a sale. But yeah, I ended up, and then I went to Australia and visited, friends and stuff, and it was amazing. And I think that there's so many obstacles in life, and if you can just find little tricks to eliminate some obstacles, it makes everything easier. And one of those is just watch for sales.
Watch
The
for
other one
sale.
would be if you're in school, go to take part in those in a school that you can go travel. What do they have, like a year abroad kind of thing?
Right,
You
right.
do that, or if you have a job with a company that has other locations, see if there's openings in another country or city, or stuff like that. So there's
Stuff
always
like
options outside the box.
right, exactly. That's what I say. There's always so many options outside the box. It's
Yeah,
like you
take up
gotta just
nannying or something, even
right.
travel the world
Travel the
as a
world.
nanny. Yeah.
Right. So you are a self publishing coach. So just tell us just a little bit about that and how you got into coaching.
I got into it. So I was always told I wasn't creative and I wasn't artistic, and so I never tried anything. And then I had a bunch of trauma happened, and I ended up sitting at home and struggling to leave the house, struggling to get out of bed some days, and I just started writing how I was feeling and about different things, and that itself got me to start leaving the house a bit more and trying new things so I could write about it. And I put all these things where I called it a website of information, and I shared all these bits of information of different things. And it was one day talking to somebody who told me I was a writer, and I was like, I don't know what you're talking about. I don't write. I never went to school. And she's like, you have an entire website that says you are a writer. And I'm like, oh, huh, And I joined some writing groups and started writing more. And then these are people who are published. And so I was like, I want to learn about the self-publishing thing. And, so I did that. And then I was a VA, and I was helping a health coach create a book based on stuff she already had, content she had already created. So we were putting it all together, and she needed, some coaching to, help her with the others to create other stuff that, how to make this book cohesive and good for the reader, and basically share with the reader how working with her would be for them and what she could do for them. And it was that experience that I was like, I really enjoy that part. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy encouraging people to see what they're capable of, and, learn that. Because I had a friend once tell me she couldn't learn how to do something at her age. And I was like, yeah, you can. You just have to do it. It might
Right.
take a different than you're used to. It might take a little more time, but it's not impossible. And learning something new is just because you probably haven't learned something new in a while. So it seems harder. It's not immediate, like everything else.
Right.
And I just like the encouraging others to do that kind of thing. So I learned that that was the part I liked, and that was the part I started helping people with. And so it helps entrepreneurs and coaches. So I help them create their first book and teach them how to do the whole process. And then after that, they now can do more books on their own and it opens up another income stream and another way to find new clients. So, because if you do the first book, if you do something that can help the reader, so they see how you work, that is the best way to do a first book, because that will help you. I'm not saying your book and you're going to get everybody that reads your book is going to now want to sign up and be a client of yours, but
Right.
it does allow people to see how you work. It does see them who you are and how you can help them. And then, some of them will go on and sign you as a coach, or depending on what your entrepreneur business is. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. I love what you do, like, to help, other clients who, may want to start a book and, really see like their creativity. My next question, I guess, would be like, what advice would you give to someone maybe who wants to write a book? Or it could be that they want to start a business, but they may not know where to start.
Look at what you've already got. That's really a big thing. I mean, for myself, my very first book was I created it and I knew I wanted to give it for free. It was based on 2 articles, blog posts I wrote for other people's websites. Ooh. That I wasn't paid for. So I didn't, I still had license. They were still mine. And I put those together because they were the same topic. And I created this book. And what it is actually called Solo Female Travel. And it's encouraging women to go travel because we're more capable than society tells us we are.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
And this is just reminding people, like, you have a job, you look after people, you look after a family, you pay your own mortgage, like whether you're single or, a mom or a caregiver, like you right there, you've already shown how much more you're capable of than you think you are, and so that's what I did. And that's what I helped that health coach with too, was all this content she had already created, for that example, she had a recipe book that she gave clients. And she had, all this social media content, and she had workshops she'd done. So she had content from that. So it was really just putting it together in a cohesive way for the reader, how, that kind of thing. And by starting with content you've already got, it takes away a lot of the stress of creating your first book. Because you will have to deal with, everybody has different layers of putting themselves out there and
right.
being seen, and the fears we deal with, the insecurities we deal with for that. For me, I suck at social media posts. I am not great at that, but here I am on a podcast, and I've done, but books out there. So we all have our level, and just because you're out there doesn't mean you won't have new things show up, new triggers happen when you're trying to write a book. So it's easier to start with something you've already got and go through the process, because there's a lot to deal with. It's not, I'm not going to lie, it is not brain surgery.
Right.
But it's all the different pieces and getting them at the same time, and, the things that can help the book, as opposed to just doing it randomly and it, not helping the book. And,
right.
There's so many different factors, but that's the easiest way to start. Take content you've already got.
Yeah. I love that. And I love that advice that you give. I think, everybody is creative in some way. I don't believe that there are people who are not creative. Everybody has their vision and what, right. And everybody has something that they can give, whether that is writing a book. So yeah, like you said, like looking at like the content that you already have and just kind of going through the process of it. And I always say, like, it's, also finding, your niche, like finding, okay, what is the book going to be about? and kind of work through that kind of a process. And, kind of take what you have and just keep going with it, because somewhere along those lines, you're going to create a great story. And,
Exactly.
and, and like I said, I don't believe that, nobody is quote unquote creative. Everybody shows up in the world differently. We all have different gifts for a
I
reason.
love that. Exactly.
And
Same as each other.
right. And we can use our gifts and talents for many different ways and to impact the community. And it's just a matter of finding what you're passionate about and kind of going through that journey.
Even exactly, that's exactly right. And I mean, like I said, I always thought I wasn't creative and artistic, and I mean, sure, I'm trying to learn fiction. And one of my, nonfiction books actually had to be unpublished because it was a dessert guide for downtown Vancouver, and it changed so much I had to unpublish it. But I learned that it's not that I'm not creative, it's that I wasn't the same creative as everybody else around me.
Right.
So we're all ourselves. And no matter if you write a fiction book or a nonfiction book, consider the reader. So many times I talk to people and they just want to do something for themselves. And it's like, that's great. But you're not going to, the end result is not going to be the clients coming to you or, making a ton of money kind of. Also, if you put out one book, you're generally not going to become a millionaire. And that's, a big thing. People think they're going to make it rich off one book, and you're not. It's highly unlikely.
Exactly.
But the thing is, if you always, whether you're writing fiction or nonfiction, if you're always considering the end reader, so you're putting out content that end person wants, that it's going to help them, or it's going to, they're going to love the story, or, so many people want to write a memoir, and memoirs are actually one of the hardest things to sell. That and poetry books, actually.
Yeah.
So they're hard to sell, but you can put your story out if you create a book that the reader wants and can help them, and you intersperse with your story and your memoir kind of thing. You can do it in a way, but that's the thing. You always have to think of the reader.
Right. Yeah. It's all starts of like, what's gonna, I want when somebody reads my book, I want them, how do you want them to feel? And how do you want them to look at, the book that you're reading? And,
exactly.
And it is a process. And I mean, like you were saying, like writing a memoir, it's hard, it really is. But I mean, I'm not saying it can't be done, but it is very hard. It is very challenging. It's hard to sell to people. So it's all a matter of finding the reader, like what do you want them to feel when they open up your book, and kind of go from there.
Because if you think about it, like if it's a fiction story, if you're writing a rom-com, it's because you want people to like romance, and you want them to feel the romance, and you want them to laugh, kind of thing, right? And if you're writing a lighthearted murder cozy mystery, you want them to, you want it to be light, but you want them to solve a puzzle. You want them to get involved, what was this, that kind of, and it's the same as fiction. When somebody reads something you've created, your first book could easily be, if you're a person who does, for example, if you're like, I don't know, you do yoga and meditation, your first book could be a type of journal that is complementary to the services you have. So, you're showing people, you're getting your name out there to what you do, and people are taking your knowledge and it's helping them, right? So it is how you want that person to, who do you want to read your book? How do you want them to feel about it?
Correct. Yeah, I 100% agree with everything you just said. It's, it's also like, what topic, do you want to focus on with your book? And it's, okay, I want to talk about romance, so I'm gonna write a whole story that's just gonna involve romance and
Yeah.
kind of that kind of thing. So yeah, I agree with what you were just saying. So my last question is, everyone basically talks about self-care, and self-care is the most talked about. It's all over social media. That you always hear those TV ads where they're playing, it's important to take care of your mental health. And self-care is one of those. I want to know, like, how do you define self-care, and what self-care activities do you incorporate in your daily life?
Self-care to me is, sure, some days it's putting on a face mask. That does, it does.
Mm-hmm.
But most of it for me is, incorporating, moving my body, eating healthy, getting sleep. And that's, for my physical body. And then for me, mentally and emotionally, I use meditation and connecting with another human being in some way,
Mm-hmm.
whether it's just throwing out a message, or it's meeting up to do, for coffee. It's having a Zoom call. It's connecting with somebody in some way.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's the regulating my nervous system, which is part of the the emotional and mental aspect with the meditation. And I've started doing exercises and incorporating breathing. My inhale and exhale goes with the exercise, so it slows down the exercising, but it actually calms my nervous system down in the most amazing way.
Right.
And that right there, huge. And then the biggest part would be, I like to try new things. So I was mentioning to you that I have a mental wellness workbook with journal. And so they incorporate all these different holistic things. So it takes all, rounded view of, for your daily life. And then there's every week, there's a challenge in there to get you to step out of your little bubble. And that's based on what I did. These are all things based on what I do and have done to help with my own mental illness and my own mental wellness and self-care. And so, this is not part of it in the book, but one thing I do is, because I consider myself a hot chocolate connoisseur, I always will find a new bakery, a new cafe or coffee place that has hot chocolate, and I will go try them, and I will taste different flavors of hot chocolate, because that's getting me out of my comfort zone. Because while I do like the hot chocolate, I try a different flavor that I might not necessarily know of. Like once I had tomato in my hot chocolate, which was really good, and never would have thought of it. And
That's making me want to try it.
yeah, it is. It's amazing, because you're still in a comfortable area. You're still doing something you enjoy, but you're trying new things, and it's getting you, out of that. We think getting out of our comfort zone means jumping out of an airplane. No,
Right.
not necessarily. You got to do baby steps. You can't just do these big giant things. It's not sustainable. But when you do baby steps, it's sustainable, and it creates a lifestyle for you. And that right there is self-care, because you're creating joy. You're happy. Self-care is about you and your soul happy. Just enjoying life. And it doesn't take a lot of time. It can take 20 minutes of coloring in a coloring book one day. It can be, 10-minute meditation. It can be, like I said, sitting in for an hour in a coffee shop. And then, like, I like to add a little mindfulness to it. And I'll be like, oh, what am I hearing? What am I seeing? What am I smelling? And, what am I feeling on my skin? Just to, again, it helps your nervous system. And it's a way to do a couple modalities at once.
Right. I actually like when you were saying the meditation, meditation that you do. I think it's the 3-3-3. So like 3 things you see, 3 things you hear,
The
3 things. Yeah, that
Yeah.
mindfulness meditation, because my therapist actually was talking to me about doing it, and it really does help regulate your nervous
Your nervous
system,
system. Yeah.
and brings you back into the present moment, especially if you're
Yes.
all up in, your head up here.
Yeah, exactly. You
Um,
get anxious, you get depressed, any of that. Yeah, bring it back to the present moment. Do that, like you said, three things you see, three things you feel, three things you smell, that kind of thing. And I also have a sheet of that. That's in my workbook too, because you can do that when you're going for a walk. You can do that when you're standing in line. Um, you're in a stressful situation, just bring it to that, do those three things. And it's like, how does your shirt feel on your arm? It doesn't have to be you stab yourself with your fingernail or anything like that. It's just simple things like that, recognizing, because you're bringing yourself into the moment, and that's what helps your nervous system.
Yeah, absolutely, and I 100% agree. And that, and how I define self-care is pretty similar to yours. So like I love to go on, walks. I'll even go for a run sometimes, a jog, you know.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love to do yoga.
Mm-hmm.
I like to, yoga really helps me calm down. Meditation I include in the mornings as well. Like even if I have like 5 minutes, like I have to have 5 minutes of me time. That means no TV, or anything like that. I need to be, I need to have those 5 minutes for just myself. Another thing I like to do is journaling. So
Mm-hmm.
journaling, will help me, especially if I'm having anxious thoughts. Just
Mm-hmm.
having it on a piece of paper or a pencil, really, piece of paper and pen, just writing it down really helps me too. And, just
Mm-hmm.
not sharing it with anybody. And what I also like to do is I'll include some journal prompts. So I'll go on Google and I'll Google like different journal prompts. And I'll just write down my answer for each journal prompt, as many as I can do.
Yeah.
So that's another thing that's really helped me a lot with my mental health journey. And especially because I struggle a little bit with social anxiety. It's gotten better over the years, I will say.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it's really helped make a difference with my own mental health. So
That's
I
awesome. I find I'm the same way. If I can start my morning with some meditation, it
mhm,
helps me get a good start in the morning. And it does
mhm,
not need to be long. Like you
mhm,
said, it's just that, just a few minutes with yourself, quiet, just bring yourself there,
mhm,
in yourself, become present and take a moment to just be calm before you get crazy into your day. And you're right, journaling is amazing. One thing you can do with journaling, I know people that they have a really hard time journaling. And when
mhm,
I say I know people, I happen to be one of that. I happen to be that person. So
mhm.
I've never, journaling for me has always been, people would be like, oh, do it at the end of the day and do a brain dump. And I found it just ended up being a lot of me ranting. And I was not okay with all that negativity being part of me. And so I started, so I have a membership, and one of the things I do is so part of the membership is like artist dates. And so
Mhm,
one of the artist dates that I like to do on a regular basis is um, for myself is I will go someplace, like I said, a coffee shop or, just in a park, anything. And I'll write, when I do the mindfulness part, I write
mhm.
it. So I am like, oh, the fluffy clouds, so I'm bringing a creative factor into it.
Right.
And that kind of thing, it helps you, your mental illness, it helps your nervous system, but then it's also sparking your creativity. And that right there helps you when you want to start writing, your book or doing anything like that. And you don't realize how easy it can be, that this one thing can help you in so many different ways, right?
Right.
You're journaling, but you're also, doing it in a descriptive, creative way, kind of thing.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing, because like I mean, I haven't been very consistent with the with journaling either myself. So that's like a good way to kind of try that, like just go on a walk and like just look at everything around me and kind of create like a creative thing in my head and write it down on a piece of paper.
Yeah. So you're just noticing things. Like I know there's this one, it's a patisserie, it's a French patisserie. And then I go there and I'll sit outside and they've got like this glass covering over their tables outside. And I live in Vancouver. It rains here. It rains a lot here. It rains. So, I'll just be like sitting there and I just look up at this glass and I notice the way the droplets of water are sitting on the glass. So, it's just different things like that. And it's just, like it's things you're seeing, but it's making you be more present and acknowledging the things you're seeing, the things you're hearing, the things and then by being more descriptive, that's the part that makes it a bit more creative. Yeah.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about, and that's something that I'm definitely going to try. So, thank you so much for joining me on the show. Please let everybody know where they can find you on social media, on your website, and I'll definitely link it in the show notes below.
Yeah, so I have, my website is, I have a lot of weird names and it's not all consistent. So my website is dapsile.com, DAPSILE.com. It's Latin for a little bit of everything. And I have a Facebook group called Self-Publishing Made Easy for Coaches, if you want to join in that. And my membership is, if you go to, my Facebook or Instagram is my name, Teresa_Carnegie. I think _author is my Instagram. So Teresa Carnegie author. And in there'll be the link to my membership. And I'm on Amazon under my name. So Teresa, Teresa. And then I'm also, while I learn to write, while I am learning to write fiction, I still get things out creatively. So I've done the mental wellness workbook and I've got a romance planner. So if you're a romance watcher of movies and reader and stuff like that, it helps you plan your year based on movies and releases and books and podcasts and stuff like that. And I've got a few other different types of planners and things. And those are under my pen name of Imogen Enger. Imogen, IMOGEN, and then Enger, ENGER. So there's a few places.
All right, you guys. So thank you so much for listening to this episode of the podcast. I'll definitely link Teresa's Instagram, Facebook, her website, and the show notes below. And if you guys are not following the Take 30 Podcast Instagram page, it's at the Take 30 Podcast. So that is on Instagram. And then my personal Instagram page, you can follow me at Holloway_Erica99. And we are also on Facebook. It's the Take 30 Podcast. And we're also on threads.net, which is the newest social media app. Kind of very similar to Twitter, but it's at the Take 30 Podcast. And I'll link all of that in the show notes below. Thank you again, Teresa, for joining me on this show, and I will talk to you guys in the next episode. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.